We're going to talk about some disturbing Scientology tactics you need to be aware of and things we're learning from some stories of people who survived Scientology. Hey, everybody, and welcome. I am Natalie, and this is Scientology Life After a Cult. Hello to everybody in the chat. Welcome. Hello to the members as well. Thank you for being here. And a big thank you to the moderators helping out today. As we go along, if you have questions, put question in all caps so we can kind of keep an eye on those and try to answer them as we go or at the end. Lots to talk about. As per usual, we're going to jump right into it. And we're going to start with an investigation that was done by Today Tonight in Australia some years ago, but it's relevant to the topics we're going to talk about today, which really, I have a lot of stories about some bizarre and excessive control by Scientology. I know that might surprise you. Like, Natalie, what are you talking about? Scientology is controlling? What? Yes, it is. I think you guys know. And we're going to hear some very specific stories about that today. And I wanted to, because some of you might not be familiar with this episode that was done about an ex-Scientologist named Kelsey. You might not be familiar with the story, so I wanted to get it on your radar. We're going to look at a clip. I do have links down below. I know I do this time. I double checked for the videos and things that we're going to be looking at, so you can just watch them to your heart's content. So first, let's take a look at this.
Shane's story is one of shocking abuse, child abuse. It's one of a child being enslaved.
There it is, hiding in plain sight, a compound in the middle of suburbia, a place where children and adults are sent to be punished and corrected in awful ways. Shane Kelsey is 21 years old. Until just over a year ago, he had never used the internet, watched television, or followed the media.
Can you imagine? Just think for a minute, put yourself in those shoes. If the internet's been around, let's just say even now in 2024, and you've never used the internet or you've never used a cell phone, because that is the situation for some people, specifically C organization members in Scientology. They don't have access to a lot of these things, the internet, cell phones, and whatnot. Some very few, depending on their job. But can you imagine going out into a world where these are just not things that you're used to? You got to learn all of these things. That's an interesting point as well when it comes to people leaving specifically the C organization.
You're not allowed to read any books other than Scientology books. You can't read newspaper, no radio, no movies, nothing.
We used to get room inspections in the Sea Org, and part of it was to make sure that you white glove cleaned your room, but it was also to make sure that you didn't have things like televisions, magazines, and whatnot, where you might just start getting ideas about the outside world.
Shane says he was held captive and groomed to see all of us on the outside as pathetic, useless, stupid.
So I lived in a garage until they got flooded by a storm. And my mum got really pissed off and said, "What the hell?" And so I got moved into a closet. It is a closet under the stairs.
A closet under the stairs. There is so much more to this story. Please go check it out later and view the whole thing so you can get familiar with it. But it just never ceases to amaze me, the resilience of people coming out of Scientology and specifically the C organization, because you're really learning so much about the world around you. I know I'm still filling in the blanks on a lot of things that happened in the 80s, the early 90s when I was in the C organization. But people who are leaving, especially today, and having to learn technology and all these things, it's a lot. It's a lot to, on top of them be processing the fact that you actually were in a cult. It's a lot, but great story. Go ahead and check it out. We're going to go over to Seattle and take a look, because you guys, Seattle Scientology is basically now looking like a drug den for open drug use and the unhoused. So let's take a look. The Real SASSAFRAS got a video in Seattle of outside Scientology there.
This is the Westlake Station Scientology Dianetics building.
This blew my mind, because right there, it's outside of their life improvement center in Seattle, and there's open drug use going on right under the Scientology, the signs. And I look at this and I go, what is Scientology thinking? Remember, people, these are the same people, Scientology, the cult, who are out handing out the truth about drug booklets at the Olympics and other national night out and venues like that. And right outside on their front door are people who need help, but they need real help. They don't need Scientology help. They need real help. How about helping those people right outside your front door, Scientology, instead of just going to national nights out, the Olympics and other things and handing out your booklets there? It just, I don't know. It seems weird to me. John, yep, a closet under the stairs. What Scientology thought they were Harry Potter. Yeah, no kidding. They've been known. It's in the Sea Org. It's like, so I've known people who have like created a closet and made it their room that were kind of bigger closets at times in the area. I've really heard of that. And this was happening in Australia. And I was in the Sea Organization in Los Angeles. Okay, let's take a look. I wanted to get this on your radar. Lara FM did an interview with Alexa Nikolas, and link down below so you can see the whole thing. Let's just pop in and take a look.
Jenna Miscavige, who's the niece, the leader, is her uncle. She was also at the ranch with me. She was a cadet, and we were children forced to not be children and to be ethical Sea Org members ready to join the Sea Org once we get whatever education we needed legally, just the right amount of things just to basically get us into what we needed to do. Anyway, so she is my friend, Jenna Miscavige Hill. She's amazing. And this is the book she wrote. And this is an actual picture of her.
I want to read it.
She's so cute.
It is so cute. And it's a great book. I read it way back when it first came out, but I'm now listening to it again on Audible.
And she is so cute.
Precious.
And
I want to read that because I saw her on Erin's channel, actually.
She just,
I saw her
she's one of my sweet friends that are so shy and so sweet. And like, she's a mom too.
I love this interview that Lara did for multiple reasons. And I love she gets into kind of her story, but what it's like now going and protesting Scientology. I love that she talks about that in this interview. So this is one, put it on your list. I always like to tell people when we're done with the recap, just go through, click down below and start watching those videos and those interviews. And we have so many good ones to talk about today. Kelly, who's here on YouTube, you guys know Kelly. She was out at Big Blue. She was at San Francisco. She put together a video speaking on the whole Erin Kyro thing. Erin Kyro, who runs Barrel Skateboarding, Into the Ground, but who also runs Scientology in San Francisco. Let's take a look at this.
So if there's one thing you could change about the skate industry, what would it be?
Just to be more open and welcoming to new people.
You became the leader, you look excited too, of Scientology in San Francisco?
So I'm not the leader of Scientology.
This is where he tells an acceptable truth. The question was, right, leader of, San Francisco Scientology. Well, I'm not the leader of Scientology. That would be David Miscavige, of course. But that's still not answering the question. And I love that Kelly kind of calls this out.
Attention, all Scientologists. This is your glorious leader, L. Ron Hubbard, here to tell you, David Miscavige is running Scientology into the ground.
Let's just get that very clear. So I am a Scientologist.
And there he is. Kelly put together a great video sharing different clips and really kind of telling the story of Erin Kyro, or at least the web that he tried to weave about what he believes his story and narrative is around Scientology. And she interjects the truth about it. So go ahead and check that out. Love seeing that from her. Now let's go take a look. We're going to just briefly look at this because I was like, I cannot with these people. I just cannot. But I wanted to share this next thing I'm going to share with you because I feel like it gives insight into the mindset of a Scientologist and how they idolize David Miscavige, how he's like Tom Cruise to them. He is like rock star level. This was written by a Scientologist, and then it was put out to these different outlets as well. because Scientology will take this stuff and put it. I saw it someplace else. So this is from okay, look at this. It's called David Miscavige, Shaking Hands with My Hero. Now I'm not going to torture you and read the entire thing. We're going to kind of go to, it's just kind of his backstory. But here's the thing, what he says. He talks about how he found Scientology through a music producer I was working with, and very quickly realized that after a whole life of earnestly searching, I had finally found a resource that answered all my questions with very real and workable answers that I could apply with immediately positive results. So this person then was asked to perform at a gala in Hollywood for Scientology, probably at Celebrity Center. And he says, I was flattered and honored and excited to be part of it. I performed one song, Van Morrison's Moon Dance, one of my all-time favorites. And as I came off stage and was mingling with other performers in the backstage area, I had an opportunity to meet and shake hands with David Miscavige. I had only been in Scientology a short time and knew nothing about its ecclesiastical structure. I did not know who David Miscavige actually was. Okay, I kind of find that a little bit hard to believe, but maybe if he really was new and had just gotten in. But I had a sense from the way other people were behaving that this man was important. But two things struck me as I was introduced and shook David Miscavige's hand. First, I could literally feel the energy in my space change, like an electrical current was moving through the air and amping everything up. I've had that happen one other time in my life when I first saw U2's frontman Bono, my hero, and the reason I became a musician, come out live on stage and start singing. There are apparently certain people with such a profound ability to communicate and to be completely present and attentive to others, whether an audience of thousands or an audience of one, that it actually changes the energy in the space. People talk about feeling electrified. That is what it felt like. So he was just blown over by this meeting and handshake with David Miscavige. And when Scientologists get to meet him, which, by the way, you don't. Most Scientologists will never meet David Miscavige, especially today, because he's kind of like going the route that L. Ron Hubbard did of just hiding out and avoiding legal battles and process servers. That is pretty much what happened to L. Ron Hubbard, and it seems to be, to a degree, what David Miscavige is doing now. But he's still seen this way, and Scientologists have this idea about him. And I know this because for a long time I did as a Scientologist. You know what? I'm rude. We should be including him. I'm so rude. I'm so sorry. Office of Special Affairs didn't wake you up. Okay, so David Miscavige here. He got to shake hands with him. He is a cult leader. He needs to have an outward persona and personality that is engaging, charismatic, and friendly because he's a cult leader, like L. Ron Hubbard was too, engaging, charismatic, etc. He has to have those qualities. And it's kind of almost a little scary that it's being couched as this profound ability to communicate, when the reality of it is, if you're a Scientologist, you can't actually communicate about Scientology, because what is the first rule in Scientology? That's right. Don't talk about Scientology. So I found the whole thing very interesting and cringy, and I wanted to share that cringe because you know me, I like to spread the cringe. So the other thing that I did was get caught up with Jessica Palmadessa, who did a live and then sat down and talked to her chat. And I thought this was a really fun part of the video. And apparently some of you did too, because a bunch of people sent this to me. Let's pop in and take a look.
Used to see you guys chasing Sebastian. Sebastian hasn't been seen in like a year.
So she's talking about, for those of you that might be newer to my channel in this community, the Hollywood Testing Center had certain staff members, Scientologists, Sea Org members there. And one of them was Sebastian. And if you remember early on last year, when Scientology Audit Streets LA, William Good started these protests, that was one of the first people that he had an interaction with. And then it kind of took off across social media, mainly TikTok and whatnot, about Sebastian and this whole Save Sebastian thing. And so Jessica was just kind of catching people up.
Literally has not been seen in like a year. You look like you're 19 years old. Thanks. I guess. You're in Iran.
Now, one thing I wanted to mention too is what she just said. no one's really seen him in a long time. And it made me think too. I almost kind of forgot about him. Where is he? I mean, really, nobody has actually seen him in a long time. Did he get in trouble? I mean, we never really found out. I just feel that we're lacking a little bit of closure. I feel like I need more closure when it comes to Sebastian. So keep an eye out, people who are out there at Big Blue, if maybe you see him somewhere. And maybe you guys have, because it's, as much as I want to catch every single stream each day, it is pretty much impossible. But many of you have seen many of the streams. Has anyone seen Sebastian in a stream in the last several months? If so, let me know in the comments. If you're on the replay, jump in those comments. Otherwise, drop it in the live chat and let me know, because I am curious about that, if anyone has actually seen him, because she brings up a good point. But you can get caught up with Jessica Palmadessa. Link down below. You can go ahead and see her whole video there. Now we're going to jump over to Chicago. Windy City THETAN Watch. So we're going to look at a couple clips. But first, let's look at this one where he grabs a clip from Aaron at Growing Up in Scientology, where he brings up and mentions and calls out that there's been no new people in Scientology in Chicago. This is huge, you guys, because this is their ideal organization that they made, that they created. They're right next to a college full of young people. And should we be surprised that they're not recruiting anyone? There's just not new people coming in there.
And the people that I've been in touch with have said not a single brand new person has gotten into Scientology in Chicago since the grand opening of that building.
Here we see a Scientology body router ambushing someone on the sidewalk. They will pass off a deceptive marketing flyer. In this case, it is for Dianetics.
It's the cult of Scientology.
The flyer hides the fact that it is from the cult of Scientology.
So they won't tell you, but it's Scientology.
As the man approaches me, I tell him the truth about what he's received.
So Danny Masterson, 3 women. The 3 women couldn't come forward to the police. The church stopped him from coming forward.
Look how the Scientology recruiter, the body router, is like, I'm just going to take out my phone at this point and check my texts.
The Scientologist is annoyed that these simple truths defeat his work.
Look up Lisa McPherson.
This man will give up his flyer to me.
Do you want that? Thank you.
As he happily continues on about his day.
Yeah, I don't know what dude's doing on the phone there, but that is just, now that is cringe in all of the right ways, because it's shutting down Scientology recruitment. And I love that Windy City THETAN Watch does this. We see him do that out in Chicago all the time. Well, recently he just did a video talking about, you guys might know this guy actually. His name was Matt Willis. He was on a reality show in the UK. And it actually came out. He shared how he actually got involved with Scientology and how Scientology wanted to break up his relationship. Oh, big surprise there, right? Spoiler alert. If your significant other is not into Scientology and you try to join Scientology, Scientology will work to put an end to that. So let's take a look, because he covers this story, which is really an interesting one.
Again, one of the things we see as a common theme in this is that a person can't be devoted to Scientology and have people in their lives that might not be devoted to Scientology. And that's kind of what this is shaping up to look like, right? So Emma Willis apparently is not as into Scientology as her husband, Matt, is. His dealings with Scientology began days after he left rehab after seeking treatment for drug and alcohol abuse.
Which is a great example of where they try to get people, is they try to find your ruin, find out what's ruining your life and show you how Scientology can handle it. So they become very intrusive with the questions to find out what's ruining your life.
Matt said he was walking down London's Tottenham Court Road when he was approached by a stranger asking him some simple questions. So
kind of like what we just saw, even, right? That guy who could have been recruited into Scientology. We see this over and over and over again, how people are actually getting into Scientology. It's such a great question. Coming up, I've got a clip I'm going to show you from an interview that Growing Up in Scientology did with Leo Perez, who's an ex-Sea Org member. And there was so many gems in that interview, and we're going to talk about it in just a little bit. So let's take a look now at, let's see. I think he talks a little bit about just being so vulnerable, right? After getting out of rehab.
I think this is the same story we see pretty much everywhere, that Scientology finds your ruin, right? And in this situation, they didn't have to do a personality test. He's just come out of rehab. It's pretty easy to identify that rehab or addiction is going to be one of the things that's going to be a ruin here, and Scientology is going to take advantage of that, right? So then he speaks.
That's why they have you do the personality test. This is a really kind of important point here. If you decide you want to go do a personality test in Scientology, you do you, boo, right? Every day, all day. Do not give them your actual contact information because you will not be able to get rid of them. Getting on a Scientology mailing list is like herpes. It just keeps coming back. You don't ever really get rid of it. Although, if you get declared a suppressive person like myself, then you get off that list pretty quick. No, I'm not going to get myself back on it just to find out. It took forever to finally get off of it. But I wondered what would happen if somebody who's been declared a suppressive person goes online and signed up for something in Scientology. Do you get back on the email list, or, are they cross-checking things? I don't want to give them my info for a mailing list because they might actually start sending me stuff. But I was just kind of curious about that. James is saying that Matt's been a bigger for years. He's sober now, but sober now though, but finds it tough. Oh, I get that. And I'm sure his interaction with Scientology didn't actually help. And Wendy goes into how Scientology tried to interfere with his relationships, which is something that we're seeing over and over and over again, whether somebody's being recruited into Scientology or they're already there. If the relationship you're in does not benefit Scientology or somehow hurts it. For example, when I was married to my first husband and I wanted to get a divorce, I was handled multiple times to not get a divorce, because if I did, that meant I would probably have to leave the Sea organization so that I could support myself and my children. Ultimately, that is what I ended up doing and getting a divorce, but it took quite some time. They fought me so hard on it. And it's all about the control. If they think they could control, if your marriage means you stay in Scientology, you're pushed to stay in your marriage. If getting a divorce means you stay in Scientology, you're pushed to get the divorce. You see what I'm saying? But this also applies to who you marry. I've shared a little bit about my story and how, in hindsight and looking back, my second husband, I feel like that was something I was definitely guided and pushed into because he was a solid Scientologist. And at that time, I wasn't. So you see how that kind of works there? It's just it's super sus. But you got to definitely keep an eye on those types of relationships. So I guess I'm saying, if you're out there and you're dating a Scientologist, just be aware. Be aware. Or, they may try to recruit you into Scientology. So let's talk about Leo Perez now. Leo Perez is an ex-Sea Org member who is in the International Association of Scientologists in Latin America. And he did an interview with Aaron at Growing Up in Scientology, and he dropped multiple gems and bombs. So eye-opening about what really is the state of Scientology, especially in Latin America, where not that long ago, in Latin America, they were winning all these awards for the birthday game. They were being, they're just expanding. And the reality is, it does seem, spoiler alert, none of that was true. None of that is true. We're going to take a look at just a little bit of this interview, but you got to check out. It is really worth watching the whole thing, because just when you think this guy has just spilled all the beans that he can, boom, something else comes out. So let's pop in and take a look.
So you can stay at the birthing with us. And I was like, okay, great. But that was not great. I walked into the birthing for the first time that night, and just like, you walk into that room crowded with people in bunk beds, and you're like, oh shit, what did I just get myself into? That was a moment where I started to almost freak out. And I had to calm myself down. I was like, okay, I'm about to freak out if I don't calm myself down, make sure to breathe and actively just calm myself down, because I'm in Mexico City. In Mexico City, the police just ride around with their sirens on.
So he's talking about, it's such a different environment from where he was from. And oh my gosh, he talks about, I was shocked. I was actually shocked. I keep thinking, like, why am I still surprised by so many things with Scientology? But I am. I was shocked to learn how unsuccessful they actually are with Scientology in Latin America. And maybe that's why in Los Angeles, Scientology has bought that Spanish speaking station. They're really pouring the coals on and trying to get more people recruited into Scientology from the Hispanic community. I mean, they're really working hard at it. And Leo Perez really fills in a lot of the blanks and gets into how he was recruited. Because get this, you guys. He was recruited into Scientology at the Hollywood Testing Center. He was one of those people who was walking by and got brought in there and saw a film, and it went from there, and they found out information about him, and they manipulated it into this whole thing where basically they had him convinced that he was a Sea Organization member in a past life. Because if you're a Sea Organization member and you drop the body, in other words, die, you have 21 years. You have a 21-year leave of absence. And I know what you're saying. Wait a minute, Natalie, but they make people go in the Sea Org at 14. I know, right? And their whole thing is like, you were probably already a Sea Org member. Well, then why don't you give them 21 years to fully at least grow? I mean, your brain's not even fully developed at that point. But hey, sign a billion-year contract. Let's do that at 14. So he talked about his experience at the Hollywood Testing Center and what happened. And it really, really brings home how important, how impactful it is that place is pretty much shut down. There's no recruitment going on right outside of it because of these protests. And here's somebody who's recruited into Scientology from there. So who knows how many people were prevented from getting into the same situation that Leo Perez was. It's crazy. Old Fritz says he was recruited from the test center. It was so weird for him seeing protests there. He said, yes. Yeah, absolutely. It was crazy. SP Crusader says, my dad divorced my mom to join the Sea Org, and an arrangement was made so he didn't have to pay child support. Let's face it, can't afford that in the Sea Org. Oh, that's true. So let's just forget about your responsibilities to your children. But that is the thinking in Scientology, in the Sea Organization, that the job you're doing in saving the planet is so much bigger and important that it justifies not being there for your kids. It's a whole... Don't even try to understand it because it's irrational. You just can't make sense out of some of this. And speaking of not making sense, have you ever wondered what is it like on the Rehabilitation Project Force, Scientology's gulag, which they say no longer exists, but it does. It's just called the Estates Project Force, Category B. That's what it's called now. So we're going to take a look at a schedule for somebody on the Rehabilitation Project Force. And it's on Anonymous Lens shared this, and they've been doing some great coverage about the abuses on the Rehabilitation Project Force and what happens when you're punished in the Sea Org. And I thought, let's take a close look at this. So you're waking up at 6:50. You go to roll call at 7 to 7:10. So you wake up, you have 10 minutes, you're at roll call. Then you have 20 minutes for breakfast. Then you have another roll call. Then you study from 7:30 to 12:30, no breaks. You have to study Scientology and how to, audit each other and how to interrogate each other, because that's what you have to do as part of this program to reprogram you. Then you have lunch for 20 minutes. And then guess what? Another roll call. Then you're doing manual labor. You have dinner for 20 minutes. And guess what? Another roll call. Why so many roll calls, you might be wondering. Natalie, what's up with all the roll calls? I think you guys know. It's to find out who left, who blew, and to try and discourage that. It's like, in jails when they go and they do bed checks at certain times to make sure you're still there. That's what all these roll calls are about. We would have 3 to 4 when I was in the Sea Organization. And it's basically, is everybody here? Did anybody blow? You're just really running tight control on your people. So you can see this full schedule. It even goes into how they clean their rooms, cleaning up tools. You have 20 minutes to take a shower with another 50 or so people in about 8 stalls. The showers are on the 6th floor, and all RPFers have to take the stairs and cannot use the elevators unless approved by the medical liaison person. So if you have like, I don't know, maybe you broke your leg or something, then you can get, where you don't have to take the stairs. But that is the thing. When you're on the rehabilitation project force or estates project force category B, which is still makes it sound better, it's not, you have to run everywhere and you cannot use elevators. So this is part of that. So you're doing all of this. You're getting up to the 6th floor to shower with 50 other people in 8 stalls in 20 minutes. So you see how crazy it is. Worth taking a look at this schedule. Great information there at that link down below so you can see the whole thing. Now, Philip Jones. You guys know I love Phil Jones, and he did a video and he's talking about a shotgun wedding and what happened to his daughter. And we were just talking about this, right? If a marriage works for Scientology, then they support you in that marriage. If it doesn't, they don't. Well, what happens when David Miscavige is your boss and he has say in who you marry or don't marry? And this is what Phil Jones talks about.
She met another young man, a really nice young man.
And he's talking about his daughter, Emily, who is in the Sea organization and currently disconnected from him because they practice Scientology's harmful practice of disconnection.
This person we did meet and we spoke to him, really liked him and hoped that they were going to get married. And we heard later that they did get married. It went on for some time, and I guess that they didn't get approved, and they were on the Freewind ship at one point. And they kind of snuck off on one island and got married. And David Miscavige, though, wasn't happy about that and said to them that they would not be able to be together until he performs a ceremony for them.
Okay, so get this right? She meets a dude. They decide to get married. They get married. They cannot be intimate. Because David Miscavige said so. No. You cannot be together as husband and wife until I marry you. What kind of an ego trip is that? So when we're talking about excessive control, this is a great example of that we're talking about. Just like the control with people on the rehabilitation project force, just like what Leo Perez was sharing. It just story after story after story. And this is what happens. The closer you get to David Miscavige, the tighter that control gets.
For them, which he never did. And so it ultimately, in the end, after some years went by and they couldn't be together, they ended up having to get divorced. Emily is now remarried again. And I don't know whether that was forced or not. I have no idea. We didn't hear about the wedding.
Yeah, so she got married again, and they didn't even know because they have no contact with their daughter because of Scientology's harmful practice of disconnection. Lisa, thank you for being a member for 4 months. Question, when you do operating THETAN level 3, do you read the Xenu story only, or do you have to listen to whole creepy LRH motion picture version? So let's see. I do. When it came to the story of Xenu, that was something that you read. And I remember when I did it, it was at the Advanced Organization of Los Angeles, the blue buildings, but the one that's kind of across the street, across from, that horrific looking lion. You go in there into the course room and you get a course pack and it's plugged in because it's security. Very tight security. You unplug it and you have a short amount of time to get to your space where you're studying and you plug it in. So the tables have this thing on it that you plug the actual course pack into. This is all for security reasons, so you don't run off with it. You might be wondering, Natalie, why did they do that? That's so excessive. Why? Because someone ran off with it. I think it was back in the 80s. There were these ex-Scientologists who dressed up as Sea Org members and with authority walked in there and demanded to go into the course room and see the confidential materials. And the staff were so like, oh, this must be for real because they just seem and look and sound so legit. And they walked in and they took the materials and they put it on the internet. So these days, you have to plug it in there and then you read it, and it's written red ink on white paper, and it's copies of in L. Ron Hubbard's actual handwriting, which sometimes is a little hard to read. I found it super annoying. So the first time you're exposed to this story of Xenu and body things, you're reading it in the handwriting of L. Ron Hubbard, which just kind of adds to the whole kind of weirdness of the entire thing. It really does. It really does. Okay, I've got a couple things I want to share with you guys today. At 1 p.m. Central Time, I'm going to be doing an interview on Sean Atwood, which is a channel here on YouTube. I'm going to get out a notification soon, but if you can make it live, I would love it if you guys were there with me. 1 p.m. Central Time, that's today. And then this evening at 6 p.m. Central, I'm going to go on Declare Dave Loves Suppressive SHERRI. I'm going to be going on his channel, 6 p.m. Central Time. That is also today. And if you don't catch these live, go ahead and catch them on the replay. I'm excited to be doing it. 1 o'clock my time, Mama Opal. It got moved to 1 o'clock. But thank you for the reminder, and thank you for being a member for 2 months. The other thing is I'm creating more members only content. It's more behind the scenes stuff. I'll admit it's me a little bit more of a hot mess. I so appreciate the support of members here on the channel, and in talking to them and in speaking with you, it seems like that's something you guys want to know more about, a bit more behind the scenes and some crazy life things I have going on right now. So if you like, there's a link down below where you can join the membership for the channel and catch that member only content as well. All right. So keep an eye out for those things today. And if you see something about Scientology or even something else culty, send it my way. Natalie at lifeafteraccult.com. I would appreciate it. In the meantime, everybody, I hope you guys all get out and have an amazing cult-free day.